Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to wait a few more seconds before we get started as people trickle in, but we're very excited to have you all here today and to have three amazing students who are going to walk us through their experience in competitions. So let us wait a few more moments as people come in and we will get started shortly. Just a housekeeping reminder, when you join this webinar, your cameras are automatically turned off and your mics are automatically muted, so don't worry about any background noise. If you do have any questions or anything that you see isn't working for you, please write it in the chat. If you raise your hand, we unfortunately can't call on you. So if you want to say anything to any of us, just write it in the chat. In the meantime, while we wait, if you could put in where you are currently joining us from, it will be awesome to see how global this webinar is. So just in the chat. Oman, wow, this is exciting. New York, London, India. Wow, someone from New Zealand, I hope that was Henry. I mean, I hope someone's staying up late. Brazil, India, New York, London, wow. Korea, China, you guys are up really late. What are you doing here? This is awesome. 4 a.m. in New Zealand. Yes, we know. That's very early. We appreciate you joining us. Fantastic. Keep on trickling in. Through this webinar, as you have questions for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A. So you'll see a Q&A section down at the bottom. So chat is for any questions concerning like tech issues, and then Q&A is for any questions for the panelists. And throughout the webinar, we will talk through those as well. So keep that in mind. Will this be recorded? Aubrey says, yes, this will be recorded. We will send everyone the recording afterwards as well. Colombia, Brazil, Nigeria. Awesome. All right, well, let's get started. So thank you all for joining us today, and we're very excited to have three wonderful student panelists here with us. We'd love to thank our sponsors, so our principal partner, Tiger Global Management, and our official partner, PricewaterhouseCoopers, for helping us host this event today. And we'll get started with some panelist introductions. So Henry, why don't you kick us off and introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Henry. So I'm calling in from Sydney, Australia. I'm going to the University of Pennsylvania. I'm actually doing student orientation right now, and I plan on majoring in economics. So in high school, some extracurriculars that I did included founding a program called Head Start, which was a refugee peer mentoring program, as well as kind of coordinating 13 schools across my home state to build a business society.
Great. Alana, what about you?
Hi, I'm Alana. I'm currently in my dorm at Duke University in the US. And yeah, I went to high school in Sydney, Australia, and I am going to major in mechanical engineering. So the main competition that I entered was the International Mathematical Modeling Competition, and we were the national finalists. And I'll tell you more about that later in the webinar, but a couple of other extracurriculars that I did was I created a robot that played an ancient Italian card game, and also I organized students to come and perform at nursing homes with my musical talents.
Awesome. And last but not least, Fresh.
Hi everyone, my name is Fresh. I'm calling from Bangkok, Thailand right now, and although my shirt says Stanford, I'm actually going to Harvard University. I will be studying some combination of computer science, neuroscience, and bioengineering. So the main competition that I won was the World Mathematics Championships in 2018. And some other noteworthy extracurriculars that I did was an engineering, design engineering innovation firm that I created, and also I invented a mathematical visualization tool that was implemented at a local school to teach blind children geometry. So yeah, those were some activities that I did.
Amazing. We're really excited to have such special people here with us today. The lead says, my guy, Harvard is better than Stanford. So I guess you have a supporter there.
Yeah, thank you very much for understanding.
Awesome. Well, let's kick it off with some more questions about the competitions that you guys entered. So Fresh, how can entering competitions give students a competitive edge?
Yeah, so I think the thing with competitions is you show them that you can really thrive under pressure. I think that when I was at my competition, I was surrounded by incredible mathematicians, and this is a very valuable skill to have to be able to handle that pressure and competition, because when you go to a top university, you're going to be surrounded by those exact same people, and you're going to have to thrive under that competition and that level of, I think, academic and intellectual rigor. So entering a competition, I think, really shows that you're up for, mastering and conquering the very top level, very top tier of whatever subject it is that you want to pursue.
Awesome. Great answer. All right. Now, Alana, can you tell us a little bit more about why you chose to enter your International Mathematics Modeling Challenge, why that was the competition you chose?
Yeah, well, firstly, I just didn't know what mathematics modeling was. And I love maths, and a couple of my friends were doing it, and they were like, oh, they'd done it before, and they were like, this is so amazing. And I went in, and basically it was a real life problem that we had to solve using purely maths. And it felt amazing to actually be able to kind of solve an issue which you think, oh no, only like PhD students can solve, but we were actually doing it at a high school level.
That's awesome. Do you remember what your competition problem was that you solved?
Yeah, so we had to determine the maximum number of people who could live on Earth. So we were talking about like land space of living, land space of food, water, all those sorts of things.
And what was the answer?
Oh man, I do not remember, but I think it was around like the 20 billion.
Okay. You can take the rest of the webinar to think about it and then maybe get back to us at the end. Henry, what about you? Why did you choose to enter both the Tiger Global Case Competition in 2018 and the Harvard Undergraduate Economics Association Essay Competition?
Yeah, so with the Tiger Global Case Competition, that was a business-focused competition. So, I had been reading a lot of like economics and finance-related news, and I had also been studying economics at school. But it's never been really apparent to me like how that could be implemented in real life. So, when I came across the Tiger Global Case Comp, it was this opportunity to compete, on a global stage, which I had never done before. And I guess similarly with the Harvard essay competition, it was also like an international kind of event, but at the same time, it was different in the sense that it was more academic and there was a lot of research involved. So I think like both were really interesting to me because they kind of developed really different skills, one in research and one in kind of presenting and actually kind of developing those practical skills.
Very nice. And then Fresh, last but not least, why did you choose the World Mathematics Championship?
Yeah, so I chose the World Mathematics Championships because it was very special to me in that it wasn't like most traditional math competitions where you sat down and you took like a multiple choice exam of like pure theoretical math, or where you kind of had to write like 10-page proofs. It was very, very hands-on, very applied, very computational, and it was very collaborative as well. So I was able to meet with other people and be able to investigate real world math problems in really creative ways. So there was like a debate round, I think. There was a round where we had to prove like really absurd things, like how many teacups of water was in like an Olympic swimming pool or something like that. So they were really collaborative and creative, and we would investigate these problems from like a engineer and kind of computer science kind of point of view, and I really enjoyed that. So I just liked how it was like an unorthodox side of math that I got to explore through this competition.
That's awesome. That's really, really useful. It sounds similar to Alana's competition as well. Do either of you guys know what the difference is between the two, or why you picked one over the other?
For me, I just didn't hear of Alana's ones, but it sounds incredible. So if I had, then I probably would have gone there as well.
Yeah, same reason. Mine was just more accessible to me, so yeah.
That works. I'm glad that both of you had something similar in your regions that you could participate in. All right, Henry, you sort of answered this question already, but maybe you can expand on it. What skills did you develop by entering each of these competitions?
Yeah, so I think probably two main skills that I think can be applied to both. So I think the first one is prioritization. So with the case competition, the actual case that we got for the global finals was we had to analyze the top 5 smartphone companies in China back in 2018, which was Huawei, Lenovo, Vivo, Oppo, and Xiaomi. So, you know, it was a very kind of crowded market, and there were a lot of kind of different factors to consider. And then we had to kind of combine and synthesize all of that and then come up with like kind of a strategy for one of those companies to develop their market. So, you know, it was really important for us as a team to kind of look at all the evidence and the research and decide like which strategies we came up with would be more effective and which evidence was going to be more impactful in our presentation. And I think to a certain extent, that was the case for the Harvard essay competition as well. So the essay competition was on looking at the impact of artificial intelligence on the labor market. So yeah, like there was a lot of research on the internet available. And so it was kind of interesting to kind of see which ones I could use in my essay. Probably the second skill that we developed was kind of using evidence to support answers. So I guess this is related to the first skill as well. So for the case competition, we had to support a lot of our arguments with, you know, evidence and graphs and charts. You know, not just kind of randomly selecting evidence, but really deciding like which pieces of evidence were more important. And similarly for the essay competition, I would say would be the same.
Yeah, that prioritization is going to be really helpful for you in college as well. So not just in high school, but as you continue on to Penn too. Alana, what about you? What skills did you learn through your competition?
Yeah, so I obviously improved my math skills a lot, but because I was in a team, also I kind of never worked in a mathematical way in a team. Like I feel like when I've done engineering projects, it's easy to do that because you're all kind of working on a design. However, with maths, I learned to be good at delegating and how like all of our ideas, even though we're working on separate things, we had to talk to each other about like, oh, well, if you have that much land space, then I can't have this much land space because then it'll be more than the space on the earth and stuff like that. And then also, yeah, just kind of very, very detailed investigation into the problem, which I find has helped me a lot in engineering because often you want to go straight to the solution, but if you don't think about like food, water, human population, all those sorts of things, then you can't create an accurate solution.
Definitely. Since you are on campus, are there any skills that you learned through the competition that you found useful in your first few weeks on campus?
Yeah, for sure. So sort of a plug for Duke, but one of the reasons I chose here was because the first year engineering course, they get clients from local companies to come in and pitch a problem and you just have to solve it. And I love how they just throw you in the deep end and give you support, but really learn through action. And I feel like building a solution after you've identified the problem has been really, really important for me in like addressing my problems there. And also just like general team skills, like studying in groups and helping each other with problems if we have like a group task or anything like that.
Wonderful. Let's take some audience questions now. So as we go through this, again, please put your questions in the Q&A platform. And if you see any questions that you do like, upvote them so we can ask those live. So anonymous attendee wants to know, did you take part in competitions during your senior year? I think we can quickly go to each of you. We'll start with Henry.
Yeah, so yeah, in my senior year, I competed in the Harvard essay competition. And in my junior year, that was the Tiger Global Case competition.
Wonderful. And Alana, what about you?
Yeah, I did IM Squared C in my senior year, and also the robot I mentioned, I entered that in my competition that year as well.
Sweet. And Fresh?
Yeah, so with the World Mathematics Championships, I did that in my junior year. But I think most of the other competitions I did were in my senior year. I think we often find it's easier to do things in our senior years because, I don't know, we just feel like braver, I guess, and more willing to put ourselves out there. But I think it doesn't really matter what year you do it, but I think a lot of people do these competitions in their senior year.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, what advice would you give to a science student who entered the Tiger Case competition, but is obviously not economics and business related? Henry, I'm going to throw this one to you.
Yeah, sure. So I think, you know, the great thing about the Tiger Global Case Comp is, you know, you get to work in a team, and quite often when you have, you know, 3 or 4 students together in a team, each one of them brings something different to the table. So I think, you know, even if you don't know much about economics or business, the case that you'll be getting, there will be a lot of opportunity there for you to get really creative with the solutions and the strategies that you come up with. So to take an example, in the 2018 Tiger Global Case competition, in my team, one of my team members actually came up with developing kind of a whole new technology that Huawei could actually implement in kind of opening up an entirely new market. And they did that even without understanding too much kind of economics or finance beforehand.
Very cool. We have a lot of questions here about the Tiger Global Case competition, which is awesome to see. I think we'll save those towards the end when we do talk about the competition. But let's do this question again from another anonymous attendee. How do you handle stress and nerves when in a case competition? So Fresh, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think nerves and stress is totally normal. I think for me, one thing that helped was to see this as an opportunity to bond with people and to build connections rather than to compete against them and like destroy kind of mutual connection. Because I feel like even though you're competing against people, you have to realize if someone is like better than you, or if someone is winning, for example, like it's actually an opportunity for you to learn from them, like what they're doing, right? So everything is a growth opportunity. There's real, so you just have to view it optimistically like that, I think.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome answer. Alana, Diana wants to know, how much prior knowledge on each subject do you think someone needs to have before they enter a competition?
I think that it really depends on the competition, but also I feel like a lot of competitions, there's not really any harm in going in them, even if you don't have that knowledge, because you're really put in the competition and you have to create a result. So like you'll learn so many skills just in the process, and then also with the extra research you'll have to do to get to that level. For the international maths modeling competition, like we had to have a good understanding of maths, but like a lot of it was kind of using logic and just like an understanding of the concept at hand to actually go ahead and create a solution. It was less about the like knowing integrals or anything like that. And it was just like, okay, so now we have to work out population. How would we go about that? And it was very much like based on logic, not necessarily intellectual knowledge.
That's a good answer as well. Henry, Lena wants to know, what is the best, most efficient and effective way to prepare for a competition?
Yeah, so I think, if we speak specifically to the Tiger Global Case Comp, I think, leading up to the case comp before you receive the case itself, I think, it's just about getting yourself really familiar with, business, current affairs, and just really spending the time to read up on, news and what's going on in the world. So, for example, before the Tiger Global Case Comp that I was in 2018, I spent a lot of time going through like Bloomberg, The Economist, not necessarily reading only about, finance or business, but just kind of developments in technology that were happening in general, because I think just having that holistic knowledge can help you kind of come up with more creative solutions. So I would say, I would say reading broadly beforehand is probably one of the biggest pieces of advice from me.
Great. We'll take 2 more audience questions right now. Don't worry, guys, we'll do more later, so please keep them coming. I want each of you to answer this relatively quickly, so we'll do this kind of rapid fire. Which quote inspires you the most? So Fresh, we'll start with you.
So one quote that inspires me, I think it's like every crisis is also an opportunity. I think, learning to view everything in a positive light.
Yeah, Fresh, I think you have a very good open mindset on things from your answers, so that's awesome to see.
Thank you.
Alana, what about you?
I think just kind of try again. It's always good that I found that even like if I run from the room in frustration, that when I come back, usually the problem's not that hard and I can work through it.
That's awesome. And Henry?
So I don't know if you would call this inspiring, but Elon Musk once said, if you need someone to give you inspirational words to do something, then you probably shouldn't do it.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. And a lot of people are asking about a recording. This will be recorded and sent out. We also have a few people asking how they can reach the panelists. So Henry, Alana, and Fresh, I'm not sure if you guys are comfortable with people connecting with you on LinkedIn or what the best way people can reach you is, but maybe that can be addressed in the follow-up email as well. All right, let's go into some more questions. So this is for everyone. How did you prepare for this competition? So Henry, you already answered this question, so maybe we'll do Alana first and then Fresh.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like as I said, didn't need prior knowledge for the competition, but just kind of knowing that I was going to a maths competition, learning about different like forms of maths and different ways to approach problems was definitely really helpful.
And Fresh, what about you?
For me, I think the preparation process wasn't really preparing like the content, but for me it was preparing like the enthusiasm and the motivation to do lots of math for a really long time. So I really didn't sit down and kind of like try to memorize like lots of different formula. I think for me, I just tried to get into the mood of like really learning math and having that curiosity to find out more and talk to people who love it so much like I do. So yeah, for me, it was definitely a big mindset shift in preparation.
That's awesome. I would love if all of you guys could talk a little bit more about what the content looked like of these competitions. So how long were they? Were you working in a team, you know, for how long basically? So maybe Henry, we start with you.
Yeah, so we had 2 rounds in the competition. One was the regional rounds and one was the global rounds. So in the regional round, we kind of got a case study and then we had to come up with a solution to that. And we had a week to do that. So that was kind of slightly more chill because our team could kind of just get together, talk for maybe 1 or 2 hours per day. We kind of did leave some stuff to the last 1 or 2 days. So those were kind of a bit busier. In the global finals, it was kind of like in 2018, it was 36 hours. So we got the case, and then the very next day we had to kind of present. So I think we got like 2 hours of sleep that night, but it was super fun. So,
and
yeah.
what about the economics competition? Sorry, the essay competition.
Yeah, the essay competition, I think we had slightly more time to prepare. So that was kind of 2 months time. So that kind of makes sense in a way because it's more about like researching and then kind of digesting it.
And was that a competition as well, or was that a solo competition?
No, so yeah, that was a solo one.
Okay, great. Alana, what about your math competition?
Yeah, so it was really interesting how it was organized. Basically, you had, I think it was 3 weeks, but you could only choose 5 days out of those 3 weeks. So you started on one day and then you had to complete the project in 5 days. And they gave you 3 questions like based around the same kind of concept of human population, just like the different parts that you had to step through. And yeah, you're in a team of 3 to 4, I believe. And you had to create like a fully formed document by the end. So we divided it up into like actually figuring out the maths, and then as we went on, like one person who was good with latex like went into and actually created a lab report. With my robotics competition, my robot probably took about like 3 months to make, but not working like super solidly, like maybe an hour every weekend and then a few more hours when it got closer and stuff like that. And then it was one day when we went into like a big presentation hall and got to see everybody else's projects and compete there.
Awesome. And Fresh, what was your competition like?
Yeah, so my competition spanned over an entire week. It was hosted at the University of Melbourne in Melbourne, Australia. And basically it was 12 different rounds and they were all really diverse. Some of them were like individual, some of them were kind of in large groups, some of them were in smaller groups. And yeah, so just some examples. So there was kind of like the traditional mathy round called mathematician, where you sat and kind of did like a multiple choice exam. There was another one called proof, which was more kind of proof based. And then there were also some really crazy ones, like one called crypto, which was about like encrypting and decrypting code through kind of computational tools. So that was quite interesting. So yeah, it was definitely a really big variety. And I think the way they picked the winner was they just went with like the average kind of mean score over all of the rounds. But then they also had like individual round medals as well for people who did the best in like particular rounds or like sets of rounds. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Hopefully some of you students on this call are getting inspired and hoping to join these competitions as well. Okay, very rapid fire for all of you. If you could give one tip for students preparing for these competitions who want to excel, what would you say? So Henry, we'll start back with you.
Yeah, I think specifically to the case comp, if don't be afraid to get too advanced, like, in your research, you might come across like uni level or even like, strategies that people use in actual like business careers. Don't be afraid to go there because it really will help your case.
Awesome. Alana?
Be unique. Just, you don't have to approach a problem in the like set way. Try and I felt like we got awarded because we approached it in a unique way and came out with perhaps a more successful answer.
Definitely. And Fresh?
I definitely would echo a lot of the advice that the other two shared already, and I think one more is just like enjoy the moment. I think that will really, because it only lasts once. So just really enjoy that opportunity to perform like your subject at a really high level, and hopefully that kind of will allow you to really thrive in that environment.
Awesome. All right, let's take some more audience questions. So how did you manage school and your extracurriculars at the same time? Alana, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, so the way that the Australian HSC, it's called the HSC system works, is basically you learn content up into year 11, but the content from year 11 and 12 is tested at one big exam at the end of year 12, and there are assessments throughout year 12, which determine half of your score and the other half is from the big exam. So I had started with a lot of extracurriculars throughout the first half of high school. So I think I was definitely very used to balancing extracurriculars and school. However, when academics became more of a focus, because I was applying to America and they take more of a rounded look from year 9 to 12, I focused more on the extracurriculars because I knew that my other grades would hold it up. However, I would probably say that I devoted free periods and weekdays to my study, and then on the weekends I took a break from study and did projects and things like that.
Awesome. Henry, what about you?
Yeah, so I think I would say, so I actually was in the same system as Alana, so I did the HSC as well. Yeah, I guess the main way I handled it was I think throughout year 12, I treated my extracurriculars more as kind of like a break from, studying and all of the academics. But I think in the cases where it did kind of get too busy at school, I kind of, blocked out my time weeks at a time. So, when it kind of came closer to exam time, I would kind of spend less time on extracurriculars and I would try and plan, for example, the things like case comps and essay competitions. I would do most of the prep in periods where there weren't exams pending.
And Fresh?
I would recommend you use some sort of scheduling or calendar app to really efficiently divide your time into this is allotted extracurricular time, this is allotted academic times, because if you're going to do extracurricular, roll for the next 2 hours, roll with it. If you're going to study for the upcoming test for Sunday afternoon, roll with that, but don't try to juggle both at the same time, but rather try to divide your time carefully. And I also agree with Henry that you should see extracurriculars as an opportunity to unwind from academics. So as long as you're picking extracurriculars you're really passionate about, that really feel like something you would want to do anyway, then you should use that as an opportunity to relax from the really stressful academics. So you're honestly you'll be able to tackle both at the same time.
Wonderful. And I'd love to hear a little bit about how you guys think that these competitions helped you with your university admissions success. So all of you guys got into really wonderful universities. Fresh, maybe we'll start with you. How do you think your competition win helped or hindered your application?
Yeah, I think it really was one of the things where I was really proud to put in my competition and my application. And I really do think it helps you stand out, especially if it's a national or international competition. It really, because I think universities ultimately, they're looking to admit people who have really impactful and very impressive achievements, right? It's not just about, you know, what ideas you have or what you're currently doing, but it's also what you've achieved before. So being able to say that, you know, you've come first place or you've received like a distinction or whatever in like a competition really shows that you are at that level. And if you already shown yourself to be at the top with these competitions, then there's no way you can't be at the top in terms of like, you know, the top of the application pile as well. So I really do think that it helps to accentuate your abilities in a really official way. Yeah.
And for those of you on the call who are looking to go to these top universities, something to be careful of is you want to make sure that your application is not just all competitions, right? So all of these students had excellent extracurricular activities aside from the competitions that they won, although that's important too. Don't think that, you know, just nailing 10 competitions is going to be what gets you into a Harvard or Stanford or a Duke. So just be very careful and plan your time wisely. Alana, this one's for you. What was the name of your math competition and where can I find more information about it?
Yeah, okay. I would just like to I add something quickly to what Fresh said. I completely agree with everything he said, but something I also did with my competitions is I wrote about a lot of them in, like, for instance, leadership questions for my application and for other scholarships as well. So I think that, like, leadership in a team as well as like approach to problems and approach to issues was something that I could really emphasize. And then it was called the International Mathematical Modeling Challenge, I believe, actually, maybe not competition. Either competition or challenge, but also known as the IM²C.
Yeah. Henry, is there anything you want to add about how you think this helped your application?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with Fresh and Alana. I think both in terms of just improving, like making you stand out as an applicant, it also gives you a lot to talk about in your supplement essays. And I think that's the case for both the US and the UK.
Definitely. Okay, we have quite a few about Tiger case competition, so maybe we'll answer those. So will we have more webinars explaining exactly what we have to do in the competition? Henry, this is for you.
Yeah, so we'll be releasing details on the workshop series, which is especially for competitors soon. So that will happen throughout the month of September.
And I'm just going to direct most of these at Henry because he did the Tiger Case competition and is on the team now. What is the most important aspect of TGCC that will help one succeed in the competition?
Yeah, I think it's being able to balance a lot of different perspectives and balance a lot of different priorities when approaching a case. So, it's not just focusing on one aspect, like, doing financial projections. It's about kind of taking a very holistic approach.
And I'm applying solo to this competition. Will it be difficult for me to navigate because I don't know my teammates?
I think it's actually quite exciting, to be able to join a new team with, kind of people and kind of see like what kind of different skills they bring, through the workshops and hopefully this webinar, you're kind of going to be a lot more prepared, and you'll be able to work together as a team to kind of approach the case.
Theo wants to know how you would structure your presentation considering it's 100% online.
Yeah, great question. So we'll actually have a webinar that discusses just that in September.
Sounds good. How did you guys find these competitions and select the ones that you chose? So start Alana, maybe.
Yeah, so with the IM²C competition, that was through my school and also like the friends who had done it previously. With it's called Young ICT Explorers competition, which I came second in the state in. I was just like, I feel like I haven't got anything to actually represent my skill as an engineer and as a designer, and I was kind of looking for something that would challenge me to create a project and also kind of document the work that I've done previously and in like a physical, like well-known competition. So I was just looking up like engineering competitions Australia, science competitions Australia, things like that. Yeah.
Fresh, what about you? How did you find your competition?
Yeah, so for the math competition, that was provided through my school. So the teacher was kind of representing that opportunity, and my math department has always been entering students into this competition. Something else I didn't mention before, but I'm also really into social entrepreneurship, and I've participated in a few like innovation challenges, entrepreneurship forums and stuff like that. So speaking on that side of things, for those competitions, I actually had to find them myself, or I had to be like nominated by like a non-school party. So one advice I'm sure a lot of seniors and a lot of people will give is just you have to be really proactive with finding opportunities. They don't just float to you. I mean, sometimes they do, but a lot of the time you have to really go out there and find them. And there are specific like websites and databases and stuff where you can find like competitions to enter and to put yourself into, and awards as well is something you have to be very proactive about getting.
Yeah, that's excellent advice, not just for students in high school with competitions, but just in general in life and as you go into college as well. Opportunities sometimes fall into your lap, but you're more likely to do well if you go out and seek them. So really good advice, Fresh. Henry, what about you? How did you hear about these two competitions?
Yeah, so on one hand, the Tiger Global Case Comp was something that my friend brought to me, and I thought it was really great. So I hopped in. The other competition, Harvard Essay Comp, was something that I was searching because I knew that I wanted to do an essay competition. I wanted to see what I could do, and yeah, Harvard undergrad essay comp happened to be there.
Very cool. Henry, we have a question for you. When the case study provides us with no figures for revenue or anything to carry out discounted cash flow valuation, would multiples valuation be the most appropriate, or should we just leave it at cost and revenue for each solution?
Yeah, so actually the case studies that you will be getting at regional rounds will include figures for revenues, and you'll get all the financial statements for the company. And we'll have a workshop in September as well on how you can kind of digest that and project it.
Very nice. How many hours a day do we have to work if we want to succeed in TGCC?
I mean, that's kind of like how long is a piece of string, like, I think probably like, for our team, it was like 1 to 2 hours a day was enough. But, I think it's just about also how efficient can you be with your time. So it's like, how do you delegate tasks in your team? And I think, the way that teams work, that can vary quite a lot. So it really would depend on, where your synergies lie and, what your key skills are.
Awesome. Really fast question for everyone. Is English your native language? So Fresh, we'll start with you.
English is my second language after Thai.
Alana?
Yeah.
And Henry?
Second language after Mandarin.
Cool. Is TGCC only for high school students, or will we be competing against college students?
Only for high school students.
Great. There were a few questions about that. Hopefully everyone feels a little bit better. Can we talk a bit more about the business contest? Yes, we will do so shortly. What advice will you give to his team of sophomores in high school competing against brilliant and experienced students in TGCC?
I think, I think two things. I think number one, it's kind of like bringing a different perspective to things. So I think, the thing about the case competition is people who win don't necessarily provide kind of the most technically rigorous analysis. And I've actually seen this at university level case comps as well. Like you see that the winning teams often, don't have a super like technical approach to the financial modeling. What they do have is kind of a very unique and out of the box solution. And I think, the great thing about that is you don't have to be, experienced or have learned economics and be older to be able to do that. And I think, I think there's plenty of opportunity there.
Very cool. All right, let's do one more here. So how about, the question makes me laugh. So what if none of your other students from your school would like to enter the competition, but you would like to enter yourself? Is this an okay thing to do?
Yep, so you can register as an individual, and then so what would happen is on the 1st of September, you'll be matched up with 2 other people of a similar age and in the same region as you.
Great. All right, so now what I'm going to do, bear with me as we go through some technical changes here, is I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit more about the case competition. It seems that a lot of you on the call already know about it. For those of you who don't, we'll give you a little brief breakdown. Then we'll have a few more questions for the panelists and wrap up the webinar. So stick with us here. Give me 1 second while I share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see this? Yeah, okay, great. So the Tiger Case Competition is delivering an entirely virtual worldwide case competition focused on developing high school students' entrepreneurial spirit and creativity. Our principal partner is Tiger Global Management, and our official partner is PwC, which we're very, very excited to have. You'll get to adopt the role of a CEO, tackle a case study involving a challenge, a real world business challenge, and in teams, you'll get to come up with a solution to the case. So each team will step into these roles as management consultants to identify predominant issues, craft a solution, and then ultimately present their solution to a panel of judges. So what is this? This is for high school students, as Henry just clarified. You have to be 14 to 18 years old to register, and I believe Annie will put the link down below in the chat. So if you would like to register and haven't already, please click that link. We'll also send it to you through email. You can either register by yourself or through a team, and it is $10 per person to compete, and it is 100% online. We will be holding regional rounds across 6 different regions, so Australia, New Zealand, Central and South America, East and Central Asia plus Russia, Europe, Middle East and Africa, North America, and then South and Southeast Asia. So again, you'll have your regional registrations and then you'll compete that way. And then there will be a global round as well. You can see some of the dates to the right. So registrations actually close in a few days. So if you haven't registered yet, please do so if you're interested. Otherwise, you'll unfortunately miss that deadline. You'll have 1 week, the first week of September, to solve your case. And then the top 10 submissions will actually be presented live to a panel. Finally, we'll have the global finals, which is a 48-hour marathon, so a little longer than what Henry had, to both complete and present the case. So we have, my computer's a little stuck, there we go. We have some amazing prizes and benefits as well. So global prizes include a remote internship with PwC for the entire winning team, which is very, very special, a mentorship session with billionaire hedge fund manager Julian Robertson, and a mentorship session with Sir John Key, the 38th Prime Minister of New Zealand. So these are phenomenal prizes. We also have over $4,000 in cash prizes as well for different teams. And as you can see, we have Henry as the prime example here. He did end up getting into Penn and Oxford through partially through these competitions. So again, if this is something that you're interested in, please click the link below, or the one we'll send to you via email, and get registering. Otherwise, you will miss our upcoming registration deadline. But we're very, very excited that you guys seem excited about this as well, and can't wait to see all of your presentations. So that is the end of that part. Let us talk a little bit more to our panelists now. Give me 1 second. I've lost my screen here.
I'd just like to add that if you're not thinking of applying overseas, still do the competition. It's still going to be an amazing opportunity, like, to increase your knowledge, but also if you want to apply for scholarships, internships, anything, it will look great on your resume.
Great point, Alana. That's really, really useful. I think sometimes we get wrapped up in everyone wanting to go overseas, but the truth is this is really useful regardless of where you want to go to college. So that's awesome. All right, for all of you, for students who are applying overseas, what is one piece of advice you would give them? So we'll start with Henry.
Yeah, I guess, people talk about, doing a lot of like projects. You might have heard the term like a capstone project, which is kind of this, you might found a company, or you might find like found a social impact enterprise or something like that. And, I think prime examples are Alana and Fresh here. They've both done really great things, and they've been like examples of success stories. But, something that people don't talk about as much is, trying and failing. So, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think in a lot of cases that I'm familiar with, people get to talk about, the process and, trying to do something and failing actually gives you a lot of lessons that you can talk about in your application essays. So don't be afraid to aim high.
Yeah. Alana, what about you?
I think don't try and tick the boxes. I feel like I've done quite a few like admissions webinars, and people are always like, what extracurriculars do I have to do to get into Harvard? And it's like, you don't have to do a certain extracurricular, you just have to show that you're passionate. You have to extend like your interests in your spare time, and just basically follow your interests and talk about them in your personal statement. Like I talked about failing to build an IKEA cabinet. Like that has nothing to do with like winning 100 competitions, but winning 100 competitions would be on your like actual application. So talk about something different.
And fresh.
I can definitely attest to how creative Alana's essay was because we read each other's essays. Yeah, so the advice that I would give would be to unapologetically be the best version of yourself. I think that I've always viewed like the typical like top tier university student as being someone who's like, I don't know, like a particular way. And I think I've pigeonholed like what that stereotype should be. And I think at one point I was trying to really like box myself into like a stereotype that I wasn't. But then I have kind of shown and proven to myself that you don't have to be like the cleverest person. You can also be, creative and crazy, and that can also be, worth being admitted to into these top universities. So just be the best version of yourself.
Awesome advice. Just because I'm curious, Fresh and Alana, did you guys know each other before all of these webinars, or did you just meet and then decide to read each other's essays?
We just met through these webinars. We're webinar buddies.
I love it. All right. Can you recommend any apps that help your productivity? So Alana, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, I ended up downloading, it's called like Forest or something the other day, and basically you grow a tree while you're being productive, and if you leave the app to go procrastinate, your tree withers and dies, and it's really sad, so you don't want to make a tree wither and die. And I don't know, that's just kind of a silly way to stay productive, but it works.
That's an awesome app. I haven't heard of that one. Henry, what about you?
Something I've been using recently is an app called Trello, or it's kind of like a website as well. It's designed for teams, but I found that it actually works really well for planning out your tasks, for personal stuff as well.
Very good. And Fresh?
I'm not too savvy with apps. I kind of just use Google Calendar, but I think that does the job. And also I kind of just use like notes like on my Mac to type up stuff. So honestly, I am not the right person to ask about this. Wait, there is one app that I really like though called Calm, which is like a meditation app, which I know is not typically considered like a productivity app, but I think meditating like really like helped me like be more productive, even though it sounds counterintuitive, like you're giving up like some time, like 5 or 10 minutes per day, but that can really help make you more productive.
Definitely. Fresh, I'm with you on the Google Calendar and the notes on your computer. I'm the same way. Maybe I'll download Forest, and we use Trello for work, so that's pretty useful. All right, I like this question a lot. What should I do if I'm not really passionate about anything? So Alana, maybe we'll start with you here.
I think that a similar sort of issue that I struggled with was I felt like I did some dance, I did some music, I did some maths. I was kind of like a mess of wanting to try everything. But I think that when like you go in competitions and you just sort of run in one direction, at least you're running, at least you're moving somewhere. Whereas if you just kind of stay in one place, then you'll never find out if you actually are passionate about something. And if you go in one direction, find out you hate it, that's not the worst thing to do. You can run the other way.
Definitely. Fresh, how do you feel about this?
I think if you are in the position to say you're not passionate about anything, it probably means that you're passionate about a lot of things. You just don't realize it, because when we think of someone who's passionate about something, we tend to think about someone who's just crazy obsessed with one thing. But in reality, like human interests are really complex and really fluid. So honestly, try to pursue something like interdisciplinary, something that really speaks to like your like multifold kind of interests. And one thing is also like sometimes we are passionate about something. We just have to convince ourselves that it's like a valid interest. Like for me, I'm really passionate about like origami, which is like paper folding. And it was only until like my final years where I really launched that into something that was like properly productive, because before I just thought it was like some like dumb hobby that I really liked. So like you're never not passionate about anything, for sure. That's guaranteed.
That makes sense. Henry, last but not least.
Yes, I would definitely recommend talking to people. I think, talking to friends, family, your teachers, and, getting those people to connect you with like even more people. I think that's going to be really helpful. Speaking to people doing different things in their lives, different careers, different hobbies. I think that's going to give you like a really great insight.
Definitely. I also would like to add that there's this notion that passion is static and that you just pick like one passion and stay with it for the rest of your life, especially in today's world where you guys will probably have 10 different jobs in 10 different industries. Your passions are allowed to change, right? And not all passions need to become a business or need to become something outside of just something you enjoy doing. While it's nice to have some of those, it's also okay to be passionate about origami or really enjoy, painting rocks, whatever it is. As long as it gives you energy and gives you joy, that's a good starting point. From there, you can kind of find things that are similar or be open to the fact that you may have many different passions, like Fresh said, and it's just about listening to yourself and exploring what those are. All right, for Henry and Fresh, do you have any recommendations on how to include your extracurriculars in the UCAS application for Oxbridge? We'll start with Fresh.
Yeah, so I applied to the UK, so I kind of know what the UCAS system is like. But the UCAS system, they don't have like places where you explicitly list like extracurriculars, but you have to kind of weave it into your personal statement. So this is only really for cases where like it's related to what you want to do. So for me, I applied as an engineering course, to study as an engineering student at the UK schools. So I was able to tie math into it, but I wasn't able to tie like my social like enterprises and stuff into this because it was different. So you have to be selective. Like just because you do something doesn't mean you have to put like everything into like the UCAS statement, because that like is really subject specific. But as long as it does match like the subject you're pursuing to some degree, you are able to mention it and you are able to integrate it into your UCAS personal statement. And I think that just goes along with like the rest of your other accomplishments in that particular subject. Just make sure that it's cohesive and that it flows well with like what comes before and after it.
Definitely. Henry, anything to add there?
Yeah, so definitely, I think, people talk about the UCAS statement as being very academic and, a lot less, I guess, like objective when compared to the US essays. But I think, to a large extent, it is about telling a story. It's about telling a story about why you want to do the subject that you're applying to. And I think, for me, using the Harvard essay competition and the Tiger Global case competition was a really good way for me to segue into why I wanted to pursue this subject.
Great. Okay, interesting question. What does your study table look like? So the areas that you study in, what do those usually look like? Alana, since you are currently at Duke, you want to give us a little...
Do you mean like my study space?
Yeah.
Okay. Right now it's not, but I try to keep it quite neat. I'm going to do a big Target haul in a few days, so then it'll start becoming neat. But I find that I use loose leaf paper because then I feel like I can add notes in the middle of my old notes if like you learn more about something. I use lots of colors to denote different like formulas or like definitions and stuff. And I really like having scrap paper, and I don't like keep my worked examples with my notes because I find that if I'm trying to review, you're like, what's this equation? Does it mean something? Like, oh, there's all this working. Is that the way I'm meant to do it, or is it just an example? So I keep that separate. Not sure if that helps, but yeah.
Fresh, what about you?
I honestly thought this was a question related to the Tiger case competition because I I didn't know you meant like literal study table. So I can't show you that physically right now. My study table is not really like visually organized. I think I tend to, yeah, honestly, it's quite messy, it takes me a while to like navigate and find stuff, but it has everything I need there. So yeah.
Henry, what about you?
Yeah, it's quite bare at the moment because I haven't really started uni. I have my notebook. Something I've tried recently actually is, I don't know if you can see behind me. I have this kind of standing desk. So, I've been sitting down so much, and so sometimes I feel like it's good to stand up and do work. I think it's healthy.
Love it.
I like having my windows like right there, and I like just being able to relax my eyes by looking out the window into the distance a lot. So I recommend.
Okay, good question. Do you guys procrastinate? I'm gonna start with Fresh on this one.
So I would say that I don't really procrastinate. Like, I know this sounds strange because I think at one point I was a really big procrastinator, but then like it was kind of like a mindset shift. And I know I mentioned that sort of stuff a lot, but I don't know why. Like at one point I just like tried to spend my time like purposefully. Like if I were to like want to watch Netflix for like an hour, then I would do just that. Like I'd be like, for the next hour, I'm gonna watch Netflix. So if I want to like relax, then I will do that. And I think that's one tip to stop procrastinating is just be purposeful. Like not necessarily like you're not allowed to relax. You have to spend every minute working. But when you are gonna relax, be mindful and be purposeful when you're relaxing. And then but just don't be caught in that awkward trap where you're hovering between many different states and you're doing like lots of different things all at once and trying to juggle everything. Just spend your time really kind of like linearly, I'd say.
Definitely. Alana, what's your take on procrastination?
Yeah, I feel like I've been through the same journey as Fresh, but never been like a big procrastinator, but I used to definitely like go down to work and then like swipe sideways and go on some other app. But now I found that I study in like 25-minute blocks and then I have a 5-minute break and then another 25. So it's kind of like a sprint and I get a lot of work done. And then I usually go for a walk and lay in the sun. Everybody probably thinks I look weird for my dorm, but oh well. And I think that just being outside and feeling the sun, it just kind of like relaxes everything and it feels really good. So then I'm ready to come back and study.
Awesome. Henry?
Unfortunately, I don't have anywhere near the amount of self-control that Alana and Fresh have. So what I just do is I've tried a lot of things. So Forest, the app, I've tried using that on my phone, which has worked really well. Sometimes I just leave my phone outside the room when I'm studying. So I think that's one way. The other way is there's a lot of like study gurus on YouTube. So there's a lot of YouTubers who do like study advice tips and like it actually works a lot. There's a kind of like a lot of techniques that you can try. So see what works for you.
Also, when I'm having like a bad day or whatever, there's lots of Chrome extensions that you can get, which just like blocks sites, whatever site you want to put on there. So I use them.
Great. Can you give us an example of any of them,
Yeah, I had one. It was called Pomodoro Timer. And it basically, so for that 25-minute set, it just completely blocks it and then there's no way to escape. So sometimes I have to use like YouTube to actually study and I'm like, I can't use YouTube because it's blocked. So like, that's the downside. But it's really good because it doesn't give you any leeway. And then after 25 minutes, then you can have like however long of a break you want.
Awesome. That's really useful.
There's an amazing extension called Toby, I think. It helps you organize all your tabs. It makes you so organized. Like you feel so much better like after using it.
All right, guys, we have Forest and Calm and Trello and Toby and the Pomodoro extension. I hope you guys are making a list of these. That will be very helpful to your productivity. Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. This one is quite interesting. I don't think I'll be as smart as the other people in my competition or in my team since I'm registering as an individual. How do you build that confidence, especially since it's my first time registering into a global competition? So Alana, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I would just love to say, don't say you're not as smart as them. You might not have had as many experiences with business competitions or have done as like rigorous courses or whatever, but you've had your own experiences. I love using this example, but I did this Deloitte kind of workshop week, and we had to create something that would solve one of the UN sustainability indexes. And instead of like, some people would say like, oh, let's create an NGO. And I was like, I watched this documentary this one time about how they converted methane from cow feces into energy. Why don't we do that on like rubbish chips? And like, it was so random, so irrelevant, but you've had experiences and it's just about applying those experiences in the appropriate way.
Definitely. All right, let's go to our last question. We are running out of time here, so a little bit of rapid fire. What are your plans after university? So Henry, let's start with you.
To be honest, I'm not really sure. The whole reason why I picked the US over the UK was so I had that chance to explore. I'm thinking probably something like computer science or techie, something related to entrepreneurship.
Very cool. Fresh?
Probably become a webinar speaker. I'm joking. I think I would probably, I'd like to be an entrepreneur as well. I'd like to found my own startup in like biotechnology. I'm quite passionate about like biotech, especially like brain technology and using innovation to help people like understand their health.
Amazing. And Alana?
I'm not sure about immediately after university, but eventually I would love to found a company that's kind of like, I'm not sure if you know Design Plus Industry in Australia or, oh wow, I can't remember the name, but there's one in San Francisco, which is like really famous to creating like all of the credit card holder, like credit card scanning machines and stuff like that.
Amazing. Well, we can't wait to see all the wonderful companies you guys start. And thank you all. We have 228 people still with us at the end of this webinar, so we really appreciate everyone who made it out today, whether it's 4 a.m. or 7 a.m. for you. We are so thankful and hope that you'll continue to come to these webinar series. As Henry said, there will be some workshops around how to really do well in the Tiger Case competition, and we will be sending out that email with a link to register if you haven't already. But thank you all so much. Thank you to our wonderful panel of speakers, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.